Alright folks, I've got something weird again, even weirder than last time. You may have seen in previous videos that even though I sometimes make videos about why a particular fantasy design wouldn't be very practical in real life, occasionally I also enjoy designing something odd and unorthodox myself, just to have some fun and out of curiosity, all of that. So last time I came up with the skisser/pata thing, and I worked together with John at Silverfire Forge again, just like last time, and this is what we came up with. So I wanted to still pursue that idea of having a perpendicular handle aligned with some kind of thrusting blade that is still legal in Canada. I had to work around that the phrasing of the law, because push daggers are prohibited in Canada, and they are defined as a knife or dagger having an edge perpendicular to the handle. This is important. Edge versus blade. This spike here does not have edges, so it does not fall under that category, and this scythe blade here is parallel to the handle, so perfectly legal. But it still has that sort of functionality of aligning perfectly with the forearm, so thrusting this way is potentially more effective than holding it in the standard grip like you would with a sword. The effectiveness of a conventional sword thrust is somewhat mechanically limited by the grip. So this is usually mitigated, at least in later medieval fighting, by using kind of a handshake grip, and then in later times with side swords and rapiers also by putting a finger over the guard, so you have a better angle for this. So this way, this is a more effective thrust than having to overflex your wrist and thrust that way, which can lead to injury to the tendon and makes it less effective. Now arguably that's not a real issue, because obviously conventional sword thrusts work just fine. That's not really a problem to be solved. But either way, you also have the katar, the Indian weapon, which is a form of push dagger, and that has the same kind of feature of a perpendicular handle, so this way you can potentially thrust more powerfully, and that's what we've got going on here. And then the scythe, I've been wanting to design something with a scythe blade because it's a pretty cool type of blade, and it's got a lot of interesting uses. Hooking, for example, so you can hook limbs or weapons, and a scythe is extremely effective because it concentrates all of that force on this point. It's like a war spike in that regard, and this is extremely effective. It makes it very easy to do a lot of damage. And yeah, so I also added this hook here because, again, I wanted something for, to control an opponent's blade. That's the idea. So you can kind of sweep it aside, hook it, and then you've got the point to come with a thrust. So you basically open them up by hooking either with the main blade or with this additional hook, and then there's the thrust right there. And this forearm attachment here, for one, it gives you a bit of stability, and also this can be used to parry with, because this is a rather short weapon. So if this is all you have for parrying, that is not great. And the short design was intentional to be more effective at close range, because you can retract that pretty far and still thrust with it effectively. You can also, again, hook over top of the neck, for example, in close quarters, grappling distance. And yeah, so this could be used to parry like that. For example, let a cut slide off like this, and then you already have either the chop here with a point, or a cut, or thrust, anything like that. And yeah, so it's got a number of different features which I wanted to combine. Now, generally, when you're combining different functions, there is a certain risk that it becomes kind of suboptimal at each of these functions. But this, I mean, it's reasonably practical, I'd say. And John did a really good job realizing this design. Also, I like the finish here, the black forming kind of a point there.
This is garbage.
What do you want, blacks?
How about I criticize your stupid design the same way you talk shit about the coolest fantasy weapons in my favorite video games?
Do you think that would stop the bleeding?
What?
You're clearly butthurt enough that I have to assume those videos triggered some kind of rectal period.
Shut up. You're dumb. And this thing doesn't work. Can't even carry it on your back.
Well, no. The handle and scythe blade are sticking out in opposite directions, but trying to carry this on your back, let alone draw it from there, would be ridiculous anyway. To be fair, I don't see any comfortable way to carry it on a belt either. But, I mean, you can't carry a large two-handed axe or a polearm on your belt. That doesn't make it a useless design.
It's ugly, though.
Personal taste does not belong in constructive criticism.
Who cares about critical constructivism? That thing looks like ass. Metal
Okay, so it
ass.
won't win a little princess fashion award, but who cares? Aesthetics are subjective anyway. Someone out there is going to like it.
You gotta strap the dumb thing to your arm. If the scythe gets stuck in some orc skull, you're screwed.
The straps don't have to be used, but they help keep the weapon stable when striking or blocking. And yes, getting stuck is a general risk with scythe-like blades, spikes, some axes, and even with sword or spear thrusts to an extent. In real combat, you'd wrench it out as quickly and forcefully as you can. Look, I'll be honest. If I had to defend myself with this blade, I would prefer a standard grip like this. The tonfa design has a few pros, but it's mainly just something I felt like experimenting with.
See, I knew it's dumb.
If that's your opinion, okay. Doesn't bother me.
Your mother was a goat. Does that bother you?
Dude, you're my evil twin.
So what?
Same mother. You just called yourself a son of a goat.
What? No. Wait a minute. You smell like feet.
You mean I have feet?
That's because I'm evil.
Whatever, can you stop wasting everyone's time now?
Hail Satan.
Okay, that's enough. Get the fluff out of here or I'll donate your liver to a 60-year-old alcoholic. That's better. Okay, so yes, there are a few cons of this. One thing I noticed in particular is, especially when it's strapped to the arm, this kind of cut or chop or whatever you want to call it is a little awkward. This is definitely the best option for that. That's the backhand chopper strike in general is definitely most effective with this. Other direction, not so much. And also it limits how you can move. I mean, with a sword blade, you have subtle ways of manipulating it by moving your wrist in a certain way. Also tensing your wrist at the moment of impact, that's not an option here. But then again, the structure is solid enough since it's solidly connected to your arm and you can rotate your torso into it. You get plenty of power anyway. But yeah, so it is definitely more limited, and carrying it, yeah, that would be a bit of a problem. And as said, if I could, I would probably just, no, not just probably, I would just prefer a standard grip. It's more universal, it's more flexible, versatile, and all of that. But it's still kind of neat. It is fantasy. It's almost by definition not the most practical, just because it is unconventional and fantasy and all of that. But yeah, it certainly was effective. I mean, it was wreaking havoc on both the ballistic gel torso and the head. My idea behind sharpening the top of the scythe was exactly this. If the spike misses, then the scythe could still slice. And that worked quite well. You see, it actually cut into the bone there. It's not bad at all. I'm pretty satisfied with how it turned out, and thanks again, John, for making this. Speaking of him, he also made these two knives here that he sent me to check out, and these are available for sale. So if you're interested, you can send him an email in the description down below, and then I'll just ship it off to whoever bought it, or both. If you like, this is a Bowie knife. Quite a nice one. I really like the handle shape on this. It's got a bit of a palm swell here in the center. This leather string wrap here feels really good in the hand, and I quite like the blades on these. This one is a little thicker than the Bowie knife, and so yeah, that's that. These are available, quite nicely made, and yeah, contact info is below. He also has a few other things, like a bastard sword, a Katzbalger, a kukri, a Bowie hybrid, and a few other things. So if you're interested in any of that, or if you want him to do a custom job like this, you can also ask him about that. Also check out the links in the video description below to my Patreon page and a few other things you might be interested in. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one, folks.